March 8th, 2024. That was the day that I left for my big bike trip across eastern Canada. So far, I had biked all the way from my home near Winnipeg, Manitoba, all the way to Halifax, Nova Scotia. Leaving quite early in the year sure made for some interesting experiences, but those experiences made it even more worth it. I had already been gone for about 60 days and biked about 4,900 kilometers. From Halifax, I had decided to take a flight to Toronto, and from there I would bike the rest of the way home, still over 2,000 kilometers. Thankfully, summer was pretty much here, so I wouldn't have to worry about any more winter weather. Here is the second part of my trip across eastern Canada. Well, I had finally landed in Toronto. I put my bike back together and got it loaded down for the first time in this new place. Toronto was the biggest city I had ever been in my life. It felt like chaos, but besides there being so many people, it was great to be finally headed in the direction of Winnipeg. Brampton. Well, I believe I'm coming out of the main Toronto area. Maybe. Well, I was very thankful for the first few nights as I was able to stay with the Posnicks. They were a family of one of the previous families who helped me out during the trip. During my stay there, I was able to see parts of Toronto that I probably would not have got to see otherwise, the main thing being the CN Tower. My stay there was really great, and I was very, very thankful for that, especially after the bit of stress traveling in the plane with all of my gear, pretty much my life at that point. On May 10th, I would bike to Melita and Ruben's place, more family of the same family. I ended up staying with them for a couple more days as well. It was still over 100 kilometers to bike that day, and I would pass through a number of small towns, but it was a good day to get back biking just for a little bit. Staying with all this family that I've stayed with for all this time has really been great. I think it probably felt even nicer for me, especially since I had not seen my own family in over 2 months at this point. It felt as if they had pretty much taken me in as one of their own. It's what really made the people I met on this trip one of the biggest highlights. Day 67, I would finally continue on my way. I'd make my way towards and through the Bruce Peninsula along Lake Huron towards Tobermory, Ontario. From Tobermory, I would take a ferry that would take me across Lake Huron towards the biggest freshwater lake in the world, Manitoulin Island. However, today was a great day to get back on the road, and near the end of the day I was able to find a nice spot to set up camp. Well, I have set up the tent for tonight. Morning of day 68, I would take a short ride to Tobermory, and then I would wait for the ferry that would take me across Lake Huron and onto Manitoulin Island. After a few hours of waiting, I got on the ferry and it was a beautiful ride. I got to have a really good conversation with a guy named Dwight. People are always curious about what I'm doing when they see a big loaded down bike with all the gear. I would be as well. Often it's just a small couple-minute conversation and it's always great, but sometimes they do go deeper and it's always great when they do. I have no time limit or anything, so if I want, sometimes I have been on the side of the road talking for over an hour, which really does make my day. Eventually I reached Manitoulin Island and would ride across the island for the bigger chunk of the day. Well, just found out I wasn't recording when I meant to be, but it has been a great day. The ferry ride was amazing. Talked to 3 people. There was a guy I met from Holland, a person from north of Dryden, which is a long ways away, and then a really nice guy. I got to talk to a guy for a while named Dwight, so a really good conversation there. That was, so nice. I love it. And I got $30 from a guy filling up water, which is crazy. So it couldn't be better. Beautiful day. I bought this little sticker that I'm going to put on my bike. So find a spot for it somewhere on here. Well, found some seemingly nice sunglasses. Figure I'll take them. Nearing the later parts of the day, I passed through the last town on Manitoulin Island of Little Current. I then left the island, but even after leaving, I passed through some really beautiful landscapes. I'd continue on for a few more hours until I found a spot to camp near sunset. This evening was also one of the first nights where the bugs were starting to get quite bad. First bear of the trip, pretty good size. Alrighty, well, here's my setup for tonight. It ain't too bad. Alright, well, I wrote it down, but I have a little bit of time just because stores, I want to go to the store to get some stuff. It only opens at 9, so it'll only take me a little bit to get there. So, yeah, this is a nice spot. Well, it's Highway 17, the Trans-Canada. Today would be a pretty good day. I would make it back to the Trans-Canada Highway and get on my way. I do a slightly shorter day today, as tomorrow I would get back to the first family, the Posnicks, that helped me out on this trip. I had stayed in contact with them and was finally getting back to their area. This evening I was able to find a great spot to set up camp, have a fire, and relax for the rest of the evening. Well, I ended up getting Coke at the store so you can enjoy some of that. I have not done that yet this trip. Day 70 was quite an exciting day. I would get back to the Posnicks, who were a family who had previously helped me out when I was having bike issues earlier this trip. It's how I got to stay with the other family down near Toronto, and has definitely been one of the biggest highlights of the trip. There's a biker up there. Well, I believe I'm getting close. Getting close. That biker, he said he was going to Alabama. Doesn't have any gear. So I mean, I'm not quite sure how he's doing it, but I was especially thankful for having a roof over my head for that first night, as there was a pretty decent thunderstorm. However, I would end up staying at the Posnicks for about a week. Being able to take a break from biking and relax was quite nice. There was something to do every day, as their place is right beside Lake Huron. Even got to go swimming in that freezing water. Nearing the end of my time there, I was definitely ready to get back on the road, and it really felt as if it would be the last stretch of my trip back to my home near Winnipeg. Well, tomorrow morning I'm departing from the Posnicks. I'm gonna be on my way back to Winnipeg, Manitoba. I'm on the road again. That's 1,100 kilometers till the Manitoba border, I believe. Well, the Posnicks ended up taking me to the very start of Lake Superior Provincial Park. And from there, I continued on my trip, going along the north shore of Lake Superior, the largest freshwater lake in the world. However, it was beautiful and there were not many big towns, so I got to enjoy being in the less populated stretch that I would go to until the city of Thunder Bay, which was still a couple days away. Today I ended up riding through Lake Superior Provincial Park and eventually nearing the end of the day passing through the small town of Wawa. I would end up finding a nice spot to camp, having a nice fire in the evening. I even saw the second moose of the trip today, which was kind of neat. Thunder Bay 481. Well, pretty big milestone. 1,000 kilometers till Manitoba. There's a moose. Well, up there looks like a nice spot. Well, rained a good bit last night. Well, today was a pretty decent day. I would bike nearly the whole day yet again. I passed through beautiful landscapes along the Trans-Canada Highway, not passing through any major towns. The only noticeable town that I passed through was White River with a population of 645 people. Made it here. I'll probably stop to refill water and get on my way again. It's the Winnie the Pooh. Well, am entering the district of Thunder Bay. Still close to 400 kilometers though, just under to the city, but it's kind of exciting. Well, that car just up there pulled over. They're from Michigan for the long weekend. Gave me 2 apples and 4 cans of Sprite. So that is, I'm gonna be living in luxury tonight. Well, there is rain coming. That is for sure. It's just been getting closer and closer, so I might try to find a spot a little earlier today. I don't know where this leads. Probably goes for a while. I figure I'd hike it for a little bit. Well, not sure what kind of poop this is. Can't really make out any tracks around here, but something. Today was a pretty great day overall. I would continue to bike along the north shore of Lake Superior, which was amazing. In the morning, I passed near the small town of Marathon and I would continue on. It was definitely a hillier day today, lots of uphill and lots of downhill. Partway through the day, I even got to meet the first other bikers of the trip, doing something similar to me. A French couple who were biking from Vancouver all the way to Montreal. It was cool to finally see other bikers loaded down doing something similar to me after being gone on the road for over 2 months at this point. The one main town I passed through today was Terrace Bay. It was a nice small town overlooking the lake. I'd continue after that until I found an amazing spot to camp just off the shore of Lake Superior. It's probably one of my favorite spots to camp while riding this stretch. I was able to have a nice fire and just relax after all those big hills today. Today was a prime example of how you can have a certain idea of how your day is going to go, and it turns out completely different. My plan today was to bike alone, like normal, to the town of Winnipeg, and eventually find a spot to camp between there and Thunder Bay. However, I was able to do that, but some other things happened that made it a bit more exciting. Before that though, I had quite a few bigger hills to start off the day, lots of construction. However, the views of today were amazing, making the hills definitely worth it. Oh, raining again. Not too far after passing the town of Winnipeg, I ended up meeting another solo biker. We were headed in the same direction. His name was Chris, and he was planning to make it to Thunder Bay this evening. Because of this, we decided to bike together till Thunder Bay, where we would split ways, as he was taking a rest day tomorrow. I've never, in my tens of thousands of kilometers of biking, got the chance to bike with another stranger on a trip like this, so it was quite great. However, we ended up making it to Thunder Bay, and because of that, it was around a 200-kilometer day. I restocked on groceries and decided to treat myself to Subway. However, I was talking to the workers at Subway. One of them, named Akash, said that I could stay at his place for the night, which was really amazing. Thunder Bay would be the last big city of the trip before I would get back to Winnipeg, around 700 kilometers away. Day 83, leaving Thunder Bay, was yet another pretty good day. The most noticeable thing about today is that after the first couple hours, the roads finally got flat, which was amazing after having so many hills through upper Lake Superior. I was finally leaving the stretch of the Great Lakes for the last time of the trip and would start making my way across northwestern Ontario. Another thing about today is I got to see the Canadian snowbirds, which I was quite confused as to why they were flying in this middle of nowhere stretch in northern Ontario. However, I later found out that they were flying for a guy running across Canada named Ryan Keepin, who I biked past later that day. As it got later in the day, I passed through the small town of Uppsala, and shortly after that found a pretty good spot to camp. I had a fire and set off 2 fireworks in celebration of it being my last day being 18 years old, my birthday being tomorrow. It'd be a pretty normal day on the road, so I figured that would be my little celebration. Day 84 was a pretty good day, also my 19th birthday, right nearing the end of the trip. In the morning I saw 2 moose, which was pretty neat. It was a long day as I biked almost 200 kilometers, so reaching just short of the town of Dryden, which I would hope to pass through tomorrow morning. The biggest town though that I passed through today was Ignis, where I stopped to refill water and had some lunch. Well, I've got an addition to my bike now. I have a bigger Canada flag. Well, it is terribly hot today. It's just feels boiling. Alright, well, here's the setup for today. It's very nice, except for the bugs. The bugs are absolutely horrible. Bugs, mosquitoes, I think they're black flies, and I have so many bites on my legs, and ticks. They have absolutely everything here, but the rain is over there, so I figured I'd set up instead of trying to make it through Dryden. Well, 19th birthday is a wrap. Man, last night I was at war with the mosquitoes. Today was a rough day of biking as the headwinds were crazy. My best guess is between 50 to 60 km/h headwinds for nearly the whole day, and I made quite slower progress because of that. In the morning though, I passed through Dryden and I would continue in the direction of Kenora. I would not make it to Kenora though because of the headwinds. Getting to Kenora as well would be a pretty big milestone, as I was there earlier this trip while it was still winter. Before this big trip, I had also done a 3-day ride to Kenora and back, so reaching there would feel like I was getting quite close to home and nearly finishing the trip. Well, it is quite windy. I'm going downhill right now. This is the speed I'm going. Well, I met a guy walking across Canada, which is insane. Kenora 30 kilometers. As it was nearing evening, I would start to look for a spot to camp just before the Highway 71 junction, which is where I had turned south earlier this trip. I didn't know it at the time, but this night would sort of be the last night of the trip. I was able to find a spot to camp and have a nice little fire, relaxing evening, thinking about how far I had made it in the last 3 months. Alright, about to set off for today. Today is going to be very exciting, so looking forward to that. Gonna hopefully enter Manitoba, so yeah. Day 86. In the morning I would pass through Kenora, the final town of Ontario. There I stopped at a Subway, the same one that I stopped at the very start of the trip. And thankfully, because of that, I was able to avoid most of a big rainstorm while I was in there. I then continue on my way towards the Manitoba border. Over the whole trip, this had been the day I had been looking forward to, and now with myself living it, it was quite an unreal feeling. Nice lake. This is Caribou Lake. Well, there's the Ontario border sign. I can see the Manitoba border. There we go. This is the White Shell Provincial Park. I had finally made it back to Manitoba after having biked about 7,000 kilometers since I left. Today I would bike down the Trans-Canada for pretty much the rest of the day with decent headwind. It was great to be back though in the home province, feeling so close to home. This could turn out to be a very, very interesting day. Well, it sure did turn out to be an interesting day. I was around 50 kilometers away from Winnipeg, expecting to set up camp for the last night. However, my friends were getting together and they knew I was close. They ended up driving out to where I was, picking me up and driving me back to Winnipeg, where I would stay with my friend Sam for the final night of the trip. An absolutely amazing night to see my friends again after 3 months. It sure was a lot more eventful way to end the trip rather than just biking home. At this point, my family still thought I was somewhere close to Thunder Bay, so I had planned to show up a little bit earlier than they expected tomorrow, where I would officially end the trip. What?
How's it
Hello
going,
there.
Leon?
Timmy.
Leon.
This is the fella whom I stayed with.
Huh? See ya.
See ya. These fellas just took me to McDonald's. Caleb all on his little adventure.
Oh. Got it.
There you go.
Make any sharp turns.
This guy who took me off the road. Big thank you. No, it was great though.
My pleasure.
Embark on the last stretch of the trip. 2 kilometers. Alrighty. Bye-bye. Well, this is the last stretch. Last kilometer. I'm back.
Oh my.
Welp, I had finally made it back home after being away for 87 days. I'd experienced so much since I left and had never been happier to be back. Leaving on this trip in winter, I didn't quite know what to expect besides it being a lot more challenging. However, I would say it was well worth it. Because of it, I got to see the eastern part of my country, all by bike and at the end of winter, all while meeting tons of people and experiencing every single kilometer traveled in a slightly different way. All of stories that'll last a lifetime, and it really makes one appreciate so much more the luxuries of everyday life, but even more the relationships we have with our friends and family. This has been my trip biking across eastern Canada.